Tell me a little bit about what it's like to work in a cyber charter school.
Okay,
And how.
it's definitely different than brick and mortar school. In brick and mortar school, I had the one-on-one interaction with the students. I was able to kind of get a feel for their personalities, know their strengths, know their weaknesses. In a cyber charter school, it's completely different. I have to do different things to try to figure out and get to know my students a little bit better. It's definitely different, and this is my first year in a cyber charter school, so having to learn students that aren't local, that are across the state of Pennsylvania, and what their environments are like, and trying to get to know them on a personal basis has been more of a challenge than it would have been teaching in a brick and mortar school.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about the ins and outs of understanding students through the virtual environment and how that's different than the face-to-face environment.
I feel like with face-to-face, I can kind of see their interactions with other students, how they work with peers, and how they interact with adults and other teachers in the building. When it's online, I don't get to see those interactions. I get to communicate with them through email is the main source of communication. And it's hard to tell a little bit more about students through the email perspective than versus the face-to-face conversations. So it has been a challenge, and it's been one that I've enjoyed, but yet at the same time has been very difficult for me to get adjusted to.
So what have been some of the tactics that you've been using through the virtual environment to try to get, on par to that face-to-face kind of interaction?
Well, I just recently joined this year, and I learned that we have a system called Link. It's very similar to this Google Hangout, where you can do face-to-face interactions with students. And so I would like to get my students more involved in that. Out of my 21 students, only one student has contacted me through Link and been able to have an interaction with him and be able to speak with him on a more personal basis. And I would like to expand that to all of my students and try to get them online, and even at the same time where they could link and talk with the other students. But it's so hard because everybody's on a different schedule. I mean, you can log in virtually any time during the day, afternoon, nights to get schoolwork done. So I don't always get to, see the students, all on at the same time to get them to collaborate together. So that is definitely a challenge. And I only have 21 students. I can't imagine a teacher that has more than that, trying to get them all together and, be able to interact with one another and with their mentor.
Could you walk us through a day-to-day schedule from your perspective, and then from the student's perspective?
Sure. From my perspective, every day is different. It's not a typical teaching role. We are actually called mentors. We mentor students through a process. We go through, we check their emails to see if they have any questions. We communicate with the parents. They are using a curriculum called K-12, where they log on and they complete work. And we monitor their progress. We make sure that they log in every day. We make sure that they're making progress. So like halfway through the year, they should be at 50% progress in all of their subject areas. We do progress reports, and we also do grade reports. So 8 times a year, parents are getting notified as to the progress of their child. We also have, for the older students, I engage them in Problem of the Week, where they have to log in and complete questions, and I give them feedback on those questions to see how they're doing, to make sure that they're prepared for the upcoming PSSA. And they also have PSSA reading, where they bring in writing samples to me. They can email them in, fax them in, or mail them in to me, and I check them and give them feedback to help them with their PSSA writing. So every day is different. I mean, I might have some communication some days, and some days I might not have any communication with them. From a student's perspective, their parents are their primary teachers. They're called learning coaches, and they work with them on a daily basis at home. So it is like a homeschool environment, but it's using the internet. The K-12 is unique because they not only do projects and work online, they can do projects and work offline as well. They have science experiments that they complete, and K-12 provides them with all the materials to complete their science experiments. So it's kind of a different situation, and I'm not sure how other cyber schools operate. I know they do a lot more as far as more FaceTime with the students and things like that, where ours is more about the flexibility, meeting the needs of the parents who have, hectic work schedules, or students that don't like to get up in the morning at 8 o'clock and do schoolwork, that would rather log in at night and get their schoolwork done. So that's the unique thing with our school, is the flexibility of it all. But then I feel like I'm missing a component with them, that face-to-face interaction. I have recorded some videos. I saw that some of my students were struggling, especially in some concepts of mathematics. So I created some videos of me teaching with a whiteboard behind me, and I went over some demonstration lessons with them. And I'd like to get into that more, as well as utilize Link more with them, so I can get more face-to-face time with them. See, we're only part-time mentors, and we only work in the evening, so I feel like I don't have a whole lot of time with them, whereas a typical school day, I had 6-7 hours with them, whereas now I only have a few hours with them in the evenings.
So you're a part-time night mentor.
Yes.
Are there full-time mentors there as well?
No, not at our cyber charter school. Most of them actually teach full-time in a brick-and-mortar school, and they'll mentor then in the evenings part-time. I'm actually the secretary at our cyber charter school, so I get to see all the students coming in and out, even secondary students. So it's kind of unique. I get to see, the behind-the-scenes type of things. But as far as my students, I only have 21, and I only communicate with them during my evening hours when I'm with them. So it does make it a little difficult, especially if they're not online at that time, and trying to make those connections with them.
Why do you believe cyber charters have become a popular means for some children?
I think it's offering them a different type of experience. Typically, they, in brick and mortar school, it's pretty much the same across the state. They go to school from 8 to 3:30, and I think by giving them this option, this flexibility of logging in and working at any time of the day or night, whenever, not all students are ready to go 8 o'clock in the morning. Some of them, it takes them a little bit longer to get up and get moving around and get their brains ready to learn. So I think that's nice. And I also think that it's nice because they can work at their own pace. I know even myself as a student, I felt that there's so much more that I could do. I could push myself so much more, but we always would have to kind of wait to make sure everybody was on pace before we moved on to the next lesson. Here, they can move at their own pace. In fact, one of my students was a 4th grade student, and she worked through the curriculum, and by halfway through the year, she had completed her 4th grade curriculum, and she is now a 5th grade student. So she's working ahead of pace of a typical student. And I like that feature that, that some students learn much quicker than others, and that they can excel and go through that pace, whereas the students that need that extra remediation, they can take assessments more than one time. So say they take an assessment and they didn't do so well, they can go back, relearn the lesson, and retake the assessment to try to do better. So there's some great things as far as the pace and the curriculum is concerned with cyber charter.
Very nice. So what do you enjoy most about working for Cyber Charter?
There's a lot of things I enjoy. We do actually do field trips. So when we get to go on the field trips, I enjoy meeting up with the students to see how they're doing, get to know them a little bit better. We took 5th grade students to Fort Robideau, and we were able to kind of go through that with them, and just to see their excitement and how they're connecting it with their learning at home was great. And then to even have fun with them, we're taking them to an Altoona Curve game here in May, so we'll get to, even have some fun with them and relax, and I enjoy that. I enjoy, catching up with them, seeing their parents, seeing how they're doing at home, and, and just seeing their excitement with being able to, access things online and be able to take their learning to a whole new level. I think that has been the most exciting to me. I mean, I've seen the aha moments in school in brick and mortar. I've seen, them get excited about learning, but it's different, with them being in cyber charter. It's like they're taking control of their own learning, and, It's kind of like when I was in my undergrad at Penn State Altoona. I was in the classroom and I was learning with other students, interacting with the professors. And then when I went into Penn State World Campus, I had more online, and it was a different environment, but I enjoyed it because I could work at my own pace, and have different types of interactions with my peers instead of face to face. We would do different things like Skype and and interactions that way, and Google Docs where we could share documents back and forth with one another and work collaboratively that way. So I like learning new avenues, learning new technologies, different ways of doing things instead of the same routines all the time like there was in brick and mortar. So, yeah.
Right. So what do you enjoy least about working for the Cyber Charter?
I would say the least thing I enjoy is I miss that constant interaction with students. I mean, you would interact with a student on a much, many more times in a brick and mortar school than you do online. But I do value the interaction time that I have with my students. I just wish, because of time constraints and everything, and it's harder to meet up with all of them and interact with them more. So I miss that constant interaction and constant engaging with students. It's much more difficult to get a student motivated and engaged online than it was in the brick and mortar schools.
How do you feel that the students are learning in authentic ways through the Cyber Charter environment?
It's different. It depends on the home environment and their learning coach. I've noticed some parents are excellent learning coaches. They interact with me on a continual basis. They keep me informed of different things. They send me samples of their student work for me to look over and to give them feedback. And then there's other parents and learning coaches that I have very little interaction with. So I'm not sure, what their learning environment is like. The ones that, are there and they're constantly interacting with me, I feel that they are, that the students are getting the best education possible. I was homeschooled for 1 year. I had gone to brick and mortar schools and then was homeschooled for 1 year. And that 1 year, I learned the most. I mean, my mom's not a certified teacher, but she had taught me so much more because she took the learning outside of the classroom. We traveled, we learned about different things throughout the United States. We traveled from California to Pennsylvania and back and stopped at all the landmarks, and she knew how to make the learning real for me. And I think a lot of parents, ones that, really care about their child's education can make that learning real for them. It can sit beside them when they do the science experiments. They get one-on-one attention from their mom or their dad or whoever their learning coach is, whereas a teacher who has a classroom of students, is not able to provide them with that one-on-one connection. And I think that's the nice thing about cyber charter schools is they have their parents as their learning coaches, but then they also have mentors that are assisting the parents and assisting the students along the way. So I can see, the benefits of this, of having, mom and dad being there with you, and even siblings, because a lot of the times siblings will enroll with us. So there'll be a child that's in third and fourth, and then they can kind of, work together on some things, and and I think that's a valuable experience. And also we have co-ops where some of the students get together with other students from the local area, and they get together and we do activities with them as well. So they get that interaction from some peers, and I think that's very helpful to them as well. So
who creates the curriculum?
K-12 does. For our elementary students, we utilize K-12. It's a curriculum that other cyber schools use as well. And they create the curriculum and they make sure that it's standards aligned. And then the students will log into the K-12 system. And me as a mentor, I can log in and check their progress. I can see how they're doing on assessments. I can see, if they're doing really well in math, but maybe struggling with reading, and then I can provide them with some supplemental materials to assist them and help them to, to do better with that subject area.
Okay, yeah.
The nice thing with the K-12 curriculum is they can work at their own pace. So I mean, I may have 5 third graders, and they're not all on the same lesson. You know, some are, back at a previous lesson, while others are going ahead, working ahead. And that's fine because it's at their pace. It's differentiated to meet their needs. I mean, if they take an assessment and they bomb it and they know that, I could do better on this, they're able to go back and redo that lesson, relearn that lesson, relearn the material, and then take the assessment again to try to get a better score. And that's what's nice. It's not like, oh, well, you did bad, keep moving on. It's let's go back and see where the problem lies. Let's fix it and correct it before we move on, which is really nice. One example is I have 2 4th grade students, and they're brothers, and one struggles in math more so than the other one. So for the one that is struggling, I'm able to provide him with some supplemental materials to kind of assist him along. And I've noticed when he logs into Problem of the Week, his responses, he's just not getting it where the other one is. So we have a system where we can go in and we can clear out their answers. After I provide him with feedback and he looks over the feedback, I go in and I can clear out those answers and allow him to try that again, and give him some instruction. That's why I made those math videos, so that I have something to show him and to go over and demonstrate the lesson to him again, so that he's able to then work then. Where the other one, he understands the concept and he's able to move on to the next lesson, move on to the next week. So that's the nice thing about it. And then with K-12, they allow you to take an assessment multiple times until you have an understanding of it. And you can retake a lesson, relearn what you need to learn, and then take that assessment again. And I think that's the nice part about it. In schools, they don't have the time to devote to that. I mean, once the lesson's done, it's done, and they move on to the next one because they're under a time constraint. They're under an umbrella to get done what they have to get done as far as their requirements. Whereas, we allow them to retake lessons, retake assessments, and then, build from that instead of just moving them on and then they're losing that knowledge base.
How does the CyberCharter platform evaluate the student learning?
Yes, I assign grades to the students. For my kindergarten and 1st grades, it's a collaborative report card. I actually contact the parents by way of phone, and we have a conversation as to how the students are doing. We do this for the 2nd marking period and the 4th marking period. So we'll go over things that a typical kindergarten and 1st grader should know. Do they know their name? Do they know their address? Do they know their colors? How are their math skills? Are they able to add, subtract? How's the reading? Are they reading fluently? And then we'll come up with a report card that we agree upon together, whether they've mastered the skills, whether they need more learning in certain types of areas, or whether it's just something that wasn't tested. So we would come up with a collaborative report card, and then I would type that up and then send that out to the parents so that they have that. And we do that 2 times a year. Now, for my students in 2nd through 6th grade, I actually assign them a grade. So I'll log into K-12, I'll see what work they have done for that marking period, and I'll look at that snapshot and see, okay, they've completed X number of lessons, here's their progress, and then here's their assessments and what scores that they came up with. And then what I do is I go through and I calculate their scores for each of the subject areas. And then I put it into our system that we use for grading, which is Infinite Campus. And then next year, the parents will have access to Infinite Campus. We just started with that grading system this year. We currently mail the report cards out to them and the progress reports out to them. But in the future, we'll have Infinite Campus where they can log in and see exactly where their student stands as far as their grades. So that's how we handle the grading elementary-wise. Secondary mentors, each one is in charge of a specific subject area. So just like brick and mortar, you would have a math mentor, a science mentor, history mentor, and they would assign the grades to the students. And so they would assign them, and then all the mentors, once they have the grades in, then we would mail their report cards out to them. So it's very similar as far as, getting a report card, getting a progress report, kind of letting the parents know. We keep them informed of how, how the child's doing. We also keep track of their attendance. They're required to log in during days of school. We have a calendar that we utilize, and they have to log in during those days. If they're going to be sick or they're going on an educational field trip or anything like that, then they would email their excuse in. So instead of handing excuse in to a parent, you would email it in. So they would email their excuse in, and then we look at their attendance as well. So if they're not logging in and they're not attending, then we start following the state guidelines as far as the attendance procedures are concerned.
One of the criticisms of cyber charters is that they don't exactly know who's handing in the work. So how do you guys address that issue of making sure that the student is the one that's actually handing in the materials and the work for grades and assessment?
Right. When I get my writing samples in, a lot of students will handwrite theirs, and I actually prefer that. So I know, like for their rough draft, I prefer that they handwrite it so I can see. I mean, sometimes it's pretty obvious, and then based on what we know about the student, their prior grades, how well they've been, and and their just how they work. We have a feeling about it, and then if there's any time we have a question where we think, this doesn't seem like that's my student's work, then we would contact the parents, and set up a conference call and say, let's see what's going on here. We're doing everything we can, that's best for the student. And I haven't run into that problem yet this year. All of my students have been submitting work to me, and I've been looking over it, and I can tell that that's their work. But if there was ever a problem where I knew that, there's a red flag, this doesn't seem like something that my student would typically submit to me, then that's when we would set up the conference call and, and just kind of talk about that. I mean, we do have a principal and everything, so if we need to, we would get him involved in the situation as well. But like I said, it hasn't really come down to that as far as me with the elementary students. I can't speak for secondary, but, I don't know if they've encountered any sort of problems in that aspect. But I'm sure that is, that's a problem even in a brick and mortar school. I mean, if they have an assignment and they take it home, and they're typing it on a computer and handing it in, how do we know that that's their work? I mean, it's just all about getting to know your student and getting a feel for him or her, and and trying to understand, is this something that is typical of this student, or is this something that's atypical, that, this isn't something I normally get from this student.
Do you perceive cyber charter systems growing in the near future?
I do. I think it is a unique opportunity for students, and I think that the more that they find out about cyber charter schools, or their friends are in cyber charter schools, that I think I can see it growing. I've seen our cyber charter school grow since I began with them in June until now. I mean, it's just amazing that we've increased enrollment by 30%. Just within that short time period. And I myself didn't even realize that they have existed till the past couple of years. In fact, ours started in 2000 when I graduated from high school. And I thought this would have been great if they would have had this when I was a student. I know I would definitely be enrolled in one, if that was an option, back when I was in, grade school and high school. But I do foresee them growing and expanding because they're better able to meet the needs of the students individually. It's a more personalized, curriculum for them, and I just think that, we definitely need more mentors. We need more teachers who are excited about teaching for cyber charter school and bringing in their knowledge and expanding it and seeing how we can better meet the needs of the students.
So what do you believe cyber charters will look like in the future?
I think they will definitely, with all the latest technology that's coming out, I think that they're going to be even better than what they are now. Like I said, with ours, I'd like to see more interaction with the students. I would like to see more opportunities for the mentors to reach out to the students and to be able to use things like Skype and use our link system, and have that available, available to them. And I just think it's so neat that even social media can play an aspect in it, in bringing the kids in that way. I just think that there's so much out there that that it can only get better with the latest advances in technology and that. And I think that, and students too nowadays are more tech savvy, and they're able to use those skills, and I think that will be of great benefit to them. The first question is anything that you would like me to know about, anybody to know about cyber charter schools. From the parents' perspective, I think you need to be willing to put in that time to work with your child, especially on the elementary level. A lot of it is put onto the parent. So if the parent is not willing to be a teacher, to be a learning coach, and to devote that time to their child, I think that, then there's going to be some problems, and we're going to see that cyber charter isn't for everyone, and we tell them that up front during the interview process, that it's not a fit for everybody. But I think that it is a great option out there. From the student's perspective, you have to be an independent learner. You have to be able to work on your own. You don't need somebody constantly prodding you and prompting you to complete your work. Hey, did you get your lesson done today? You have to have that ambition, that drive within you to say, I want to do this, and I want to be able to work at my own pace, and, I feel I'm a great student, and I know I'm going to be able to get accomplished what needs to be accomplished. From a teacher's perspective, it's different. It really is. You have to be creative, extremely creative, to find new ways and avenues to motivate students. It's not like you can just walk up beside their desk and say, hey, let's get some work done today, and, hey, I see you're doing a great job today. You don't have that with these students. So you have to be creative and find different ways, sending them a little note or card in the mail and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you, and I'm just, thinking that, you're doing a great job, and I just wanted to let you know, if there's anything I can help you with, I'm your mentor, I'm here for you, and reaching out to them with using the technology, using Link, and, you have to be extremely comfortable with that. I know there's some teachers that, will teach for cyber school for a short time, and they back off and say, I'm not comfortable with the technology. I'm not comfortable with motivating students in a different manner. So you have to have, I believe you have to have that. I mean, it's a completely different environment, but I mean, there are some similarities as well. But being able to use, what you have, bring your knowledge in, and then be able to share it, because I work with another elementary facilitator here at the building that we're able to collaborate and share ideas with each other. What works, how do you motivate students? How do you get in touch with students? And sometimes it is difficult. You don't hear back from the student. You don't hear back from a parent. So you wonder, and you're concerned about them, and you have to find different avenues, different ways of reaching out to them, because each student, will be motivated by different things. I remember completing student teaching experience, and it lasted for a whole year, and it was in a brick and mortar classroom. Maybe taking part of that student teaching time and shadowing a teacher at a cyber charter school to see if that's something that they might be interested in. Because, like I said, I had no experience about cyber charter. I didn't even know they existed until I started doing some research, and I saw on PDE's website how many cyber charter schools there are across the state of Pennsylvania. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that they existed. And some are just charter schools that don't have the cyber component, and then there's some cyber schools that don't have the charter component. So it's really was an enlightening experience for me, and I think that students that are going into the teaching field should have that experience of, if this is something that's going to be available to teachers and students, that they should have access to that as well. And I think it would definitely help with teacher preparation if they had the opportunity to shadow a teacher for a while in a cyber charter school, see what that's like, and see the similarities and the differences. And there might be some teachers that are better accustomed to teaching in cyber school, and there might be some that are better accustomed to teaching in the brick and mortar school.